Hey everybody, welcome to the official Do Good Better podcast. I'm your host, Patrick Kirby. With me is...
Abby Furchner.
Because we're co-hosting, because this is our second podcast in the week is going to be us kind of bantering about some nonprofit issues, some things we're like sort of seeing for trends and other things. And sort of we'll kind of break up the season 2 of the official Do Good Better podcast with this. We'll have an awesome guest on Tuesday. We'll have some insight baseball on Thursdays. We're going to keep it like that. It's going to be really great. So anyway, I think it's going to be awesome. So one of the things we wanted to talk about today was sort of an outsider's perspective on what's going on in the nonprofit world. I talk to them all the time as far as clients go on what's going on, what are their concerns, what are their fears, et cetera. From somebody who is relatively new in the nonprofit realm, like working behind the scenes and seeing all the things that you don't see on a regular basis, all the hell that breaks loose on a regular basis. What are you seeing and what are you hearing and what are you kind of feeling it out from a nonprofit's perspective, even though you're not on the inside at some of these organizations?
Yeah, I mean, I've only been in, which is crazy, I've only been in this position for 6 months or 6 weeks. Months?
It feels like
6 months. It feels like 6 months.
It feels like 6 years.
I don't know if that's a good thing.
I'm going to just let it hang out there. I don't know.
I've only been in this position for 6 weeks.
Yes.
But even just the meetings that I have been in or
yeah.
What?
Well, you're just hitting the table
with the
podcast. I feel like that's going to ruin the experience of people's ears as they're trying to find the nuance of what you're feeling at 6 weeks.
What I'm feeling at 6 weeks. The nonprofits that I've talked to and the meetings that I've been on, I've really noticed that a lot of people think that they're the only ones that are struggling.
Yes.
Everyone thinks that they're the only one that's not raising the money. They are the only ones that think their event is falling apart. They're the only ones that think that within their organization, things are not going the way that they planned or wanted.
Why is my board doing this?
Right.
I must be the only one with a board of directors that is insane.
Yes. Why is this happening? Why isn't this coming together? And they're the only ones that think they have that issue, but it's so funny because I almost feel like I hear the same, I have this problem at least 3 times a day.
This is literally our conversations in the office are exactly that. That's so funny. And we actually talked to, that's what our lead in is, hey, just an FYI, you probably think you're the only person that has this problem. Mm-hmm. It's everybody.
Right.
That is so funny. I rarely think about it that way, but when I grew up, I would always say to my dad, why do you repeat yourself all the time? And he's like, well, because you don't listen. I find myself like turning into my dad, but for the sole purpose of like, you're across the office from me going, why do you repeat yourself the same thing? It's because they have the same issues.
They have the same issues.
Over and over again.
Right. And so I think that's like the number one thing that I honestly didn't realize how many issues were in the nonprofit world.
Funny.
Like I didn't, you see nonprofits always doing fun events or doing, they're known for doing good things in the community. So you never put that together with all these issues.
Yeah.
And like, I never had heard of fundraising as a job before. And so to discuss that with people as well and to see that struggle, I was like, oh my gosh, I didn't realize how much really went into just being a part of a nonprofit.
Or the internal politics of fundraising.
Yes.
Or the internal politics of nonprofit work. You want catty, horrible, backstabbing, mean individuals.
Yeah.
Don't look to the corporate world. You look to the nonprofit world. It's unbelievably cutthroat. And I think that's one of the things I had to warn you off when you came in here. Like it's sunshine and rainbows on the outside, but it is cutthroat on the inside. And I think this because people have, and maybe this is what you're finding too. I've always found it because people are so passionate about what they do and they're just hell-bent on trying to help as many people as possible. And folks getting in the way of rules, regulations, and processes and procedures and frustrations kind of boil over because all they want to do is good. And they are prevented by that because they need to raise so much money. And then there's a pandemic and there's something else that goes wrong. And that, I think, frustrates people because they just were mission-centric the entire time.
Right.
All they want to do is do good.
Right. Well, and another thing that just popped into my head as we're talking about money and fundraising is another thing that I see a lot of is everyone is so afraid to like talk to donors and reach out to donors and ask for money.
Funny.
And I'm like, wait a second. Isn't that
That's why we kind of have a job,
It's
I
not what
suppose.
you're.
Well, here's the,
But like, I get it. But I also 100% understand, because just getting sponsors, I'm like, I don't want to email them. I don't want to call them.
It's true.
I feel
So
weird.
it's funny because we're going through that together. So we've got events coming up and we get sponsorships, and I've tasked you with sort of reaching out to doing it. And it's so funny is glancing across the office, you're experiencing and going through the entire emotional roller coaster the same way that fundraisers do, is talking with donors and giving value and talking about and making an ask. And you give the same responses that our clients or people who reach out to us are the same.
Oh, 100%. I've always, like, every time before I email, or people should be in the office just to see how many emails I read out loud, just to make sure I don't, because I have the fear of sounding dumb, which a lot of the clients that we work with, when we tell them to reach out to donors, they're like, well, what do we say? What should I say? How should I approach it? And I'm like, oh, just do it, just encourage them to do it. And then I'm sitting here and sending a sponsorship email. I'm like, Patrick, does this sound stupid? Am I sounding dumb? So I get it. I feel like I'm understanding the fundraising side of nonprofits a lot more, and it's actually very scary, but it's really rewarding.
It's the same thing in sales. It's the same thing in marketing, where you are always second guessing yourself. And the thing about it is, I think I heard this somewhere, I forget, maybe it was at some conference or whatever that we were watching this week, where somebody says that if you're self-doubting, if you have self-doubt, or you have this imposter syndrome, it just means you're in a really successful place, and you just know, you're like, you're like, it can't be, I don't know all the answers. And I think a lot of nonprofits are in there because you know what you do. As a nonprofit, you do awesome work. You're great in the community. You're making a massive impact. And your imposter syndrome of, I don't know if I really know what I'm talking about, is the only time you can think about that is because you're at a place where you are doing awesome work in the first place. So it's interesting to watch you go through these sort of array of emotions. And then I think it's going to help everyone immensely, knowing that people, regardless of what industry they're in, go through this. You're not, I'm sorry, nonprofits, unique in the way of feeling bad about or confused about what they're trying to do. However, I think we're sort of handling it in a way that we would suggest our clients or our nonprofit groups do it, which is just hammer through. Yeah. How many times have I just stared at you awkwardly across from like, does this sound dumb? And I'll just like, I just stare at you until you give me the answer of like, no, it doesn't sound dumb. I just need to send it. You're like, yeah, you do. That's exactly what you need to do.
But sometimes too, it just is that simple, like when we're in meetings and people are nervous to reach out to donors and what should I say? And that simple, just like stare is like, okay, I got it. Like, it's just like everyone needs a little bit of encouragement, but I think it should be definitely reassuring that everybody's going through the same problems.
Everyone's going through the same
Everybody is going through the same thing.
Yep. So it's one of those things where if you're up at night, or you go to work, you got the Sunday scaries and you're coming in Monday morning, you don't want to go and do anything because you just feel like you're the only organization in the game in town. You're not. You are on pace, on par with even some of the big, robust organizations. You just look at them and go, boy, they got their crap together, don't they? They don't. None of them do. And if they do, they're holding it together because they've got either a team or they've got somebody backing them up and saying, listen, we've got this. We're going to build sort of energy that way. But yeah, you're not alone. That's it's good insight from a newbie in this world.
A newbie. I'm such a baby still. But honestly, when I said 6 months, I was like, that sounds about right. And then I was like, nope, it's 6 weeks.
So true. But you got 6 months worth of experience in 6 weeks because I think we just threw you to the fire anyway. It's going to be great. Well, hey, if you're a nonprofit and you are experiencing sort of this self-doubt, don't worry about it. We all do it, whether you're in business, whether you're in a nonprofit world, or power through. And again, people are going to react positively because you do awesome things. Right. Just do it. You're not going to be alone. So, hey, thanks for swinging by for this episode of the official Do Good Better podcast. Thanks, Abby, for being my co-host for this episode.
Of course.
Yay.